Hey everybody, Tim Campbell here, founder of IWillWillU.com. SeMonne and I believe in the power of love. We believe in the power of marriage. We believe in the power of relationship. You know, the greatest joy that I have experienced here on this earth has come from my wife. I didn't understand that before, like I do now, that my relationship means something. And I believe that your relationship means something too. You know, we didn't start off great. Matter of fact, our story began in a very rocky situation. We were young, me and my wife were young, and we had kids at a young age, and life just hit us. Just to be honest, life hit us, and it hit us hard. And we had to figure out how to sustain. We had kids, we had responsibility. And our marriage was more so focused on paying bills, paying rent, paying mortgage, paying car notes. And the less focus was put on the most important piece of that puzzle, my wife. You know, I went off and I worked, I went to college and I worked hard. I would work 60-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks, and I neglected my wife. You know, and when we did come together, we were arguing and we were fighting. We didn't have the best relationship. And I didn't believe in my wildest dreams that would ever stop, that I would ever be happy in my relationship, that me and my wife could communicate without screaming at each other, without arguing all the time. You know, our story really began at that young age, and I reached a pinnacle in my marriage, and it was actually a ditch where I was standing in my car. I was sitting in my car, and I remember this just like it was yesterday. I had pulled up, and I just got into an argument with my wife, and I pulled up in the alley to my driveway, and I sat there in my car, and in my hand was divorce papers. That it had got so bad in our marriage that we said, you know, we're better apart. And it was that moment where I had an epiphany in my life that I wondered if I had done everything I could have done to make my marriage work. And I realized from that moment on that when an individual reaches that point in the relationship, they struggle with three different choices. You can either leave, you can hide, or you can fight. Now the thing is that if you leave, and if you run away from the struggles in your relationship, when will it stop? When will you stop running? And I didn't want to be a runner where I would always be running from something. And if you hide from the issues, if you completely ignore the issues in a relationship, eventually you will have to face them. And I didn't want to be a hider either, but I wanted to be a fighter. I wanted to take control of my relationship, and I believed that I could have a great relationship, and I believe sincerely 100% that you can too. And for me, that fight was the difference in our relationship. Instead of complaining about my wife and the struggles that we faced, I began to fight. I began to pray for her. I began to help her. I began to love her unconditionally. All relationships can change for the better. And this is the kicker. It doesn't depend on what your spouse does, but it depends on what actions you're willing to take to make your relationship great. Do you want a level 10 thriving relationship, or do you want your relationship to die? And if you're listening this far into the video, I believe that you want your marriage to survive. You want your relationship to survive. And matter of fact, you want it to move past survival and into thriving mode, where you're both moving and shaking. Understand the impact of you two staying together, what that would mean not only for you and your happiness, but for all those connected to you. What does it mean for your children? What does it mean for those looking into your marriage? What hope does that bring? And so me and SeMonne sat down and said, one day and said, listen, we're not going to keep going down this difficult road. We're not going to keep arguing. We're not going to keep fighting. But what do we have to do to make a great relationship? And from that moment on, we began to take action in our relationship. And this is the same type of action that we want to share with you. It wasn't a mystical thing that happened, but it was conscious decisions that we made every single day to get us to the point that we're at now. And we have dreams greater than now. We have things that we're working on a constant, a day-to-day basis, but it was that principle, incremental improvements over time, that got us here, and it'll take us to our dream. And you can do the same. Me and SeMonne have sat down and we've created a 21-day action plan to help out any relationship that is struggling. And it only takes one person. It only takes one person to go through this 21 days.